Consciousness creation capital of the world, Santa Monica, California, the United States of America. It's the Robert William Abrevaya Show, starring Robert William Abrevaya. This is Robert William Abrevaya, inviting you to join me for stand-up comedy by the official comedian for the 1996 elections and a speech on the following subject: the United States of America should relegalize hemp. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Robert. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, glad to be here. I am Robert William Abrevaya, and I'm the official comedian for the 1996 elections because I've inhaled more marijuana than Bill Clinton and Al Gore put together. Thank you very much. President Clinton admitted he tried marijuana, said he didn't inhale, and a related story, Arnold Schwarzenegger admitted he appeared in Last Action Hero, but he said he didn't act. You have to wonder about Bill Clinton. First he said he tried marijuana, but he didn't inhale. Then when reporters asked him about that, he said he tried to inhale, but he couldn't. This guy isn't sick, Willie. Well, I tried to inhale, but I couldn't. This guy isn't sick, Willie. He's more like Maxwell Smart. Would you believe I tried marijuana, but I didn't inhale? Would you believe I tried to inhale, but I couldn't? Would you believe that a marijuana cigarette parachuted into my mouth and lit itself? Would you believe? Not. Well, I tried to inhale, but I couldn't. Well, I tried to inhale, but I couldn't. Well, I tried to inhale, but I couldn't. Don't stop thinking about McDonald's. Don't stop thinking about Big Macs. Don't stop thinking about McDonald's. Jenny Craig's gone. Jenny Craig's gone. The Clinton administration theme song. At least Al Gore admits he inhaled, right? Yes, the Vice President of the United States of America, Al Gore, used to get high on marijuana. Even though Clinton claims he didn't inhale, Clinton and Gore were campaigning around the country like they were some kind of excellent joint venture. They even tried to convince the American people that they're some kind of terrific toking team in the great tradition of Cheech and Chong. Let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. I know Cheech and Chong. Cheech and Chong are friends of mine. Clinton and Gore, you're not Cheech and Chong. Marijuana won the election for Bill Clinton in 1992. In 1992, the winning slogan was, I tried marijuana, but I didn't inhale. I don't think it'll be quite good enough for Clinton to win in 1996, though, because in 1996, the winning slogan will be, pot in every pot. Pot in every pot. In your head. You know I'm right. Not just because pot is good food to put in your pot. If we start making marijuana methanol for our cars, gasoline instead of gasoline, the only way Saddam Hussein could affect our energy supply is if he takes over Humboldt County. Meanwhile, back in the States, Saddam Hussein's California co-conspirators are eagerly attempting to implement their nefarious scheme. Let's listen in.
Roger, 10-4, Captain Dan. Take the copter down to 300 feet. Our SSS Spying Sky satellite has just detected another suspicious-looking green plant. Arrest that plant.
Yes, sir, General. Not surprisingly, I'm starring in a new movie about the relegalization of hemp in California. It's called Beverly Hills Crop. Beverly Hills Crop, starring Robert William Abrevaya. Freedom of Pop. Co-starring WC Marijuana Fields. Ah, yes. The enlightening herb. Music by the Bush Boys. I wish they all could be marijuana girls. Now whiskey girls are easy and wine makes them feel alright. And beer girls and chicks may be real quick to get their boyfriends their licks at night. Vodka girls are easy too, and I don't taste so good. But I can't wait to get them back in the state that puts their consciousness where it should. I wish they all could be marijuana. I wish they all could be marijuana. I wish they all could be marijuana girls. Dope City, here we go. You know we're either out to get or we got a public growing. Dope City, here we go. You know what's doing relations more every high. All you gotta do is just make a buy. Yeah, we're gonna Dope City, Hemp is #1. Yeah, we're gonna Grass City, gotta have some fun. Yeah, we're gonna Hemp City, Herb is #1. Yeah, we're gonna Dope City, gotta have some fun now. 2 dope for every high. And if a bugger breaks down, I'll meet somewhere on the dope route. Dope City, here we go. I roll a day with a paper and get into my dog suit. Here we go. You know it's 2 inhalations for every high. All you gotta do is just take a bite. Yeah, we're gonna Dog City, Hemp is #1. Yeah, we're gonna Grass City, gonna have some fun. Yeah, we're gonna Hemp City, Urban's #1. Yeah, we're gonna Dog City, gonna have some fun. Now, $2 for every high. And if my fire breaks down, I meet somewhere on the dog route. Dog City, here we go. I roll a J with a paper and get into my dog suit. Dog City, here we go. You know it ain't got a carton or a filter flow, but it still gets me where I wanna go. Yeah, we're gonna do City, Hemp is #1. Yeah, we're gonna do City, gonna have some fun. Yeah, we're gonna Hemp City, Hemp is #1. Yeah, we're gonna do City, gonna have some fun. Now, $2 for every, $2 for every high. Push boy. Beverly Hills Crop, starring Robert William Abrevaya, co-starring WC Marijuana Fields, music by Bush Boys, with Michael Douglas as the entrepreneur. And introducing this feature film debut, with the Coffee Jr. as the rookie. Junior, 20 miles offshore in international waters where Perth leading for me to experience my first inhalation of cannabis, sativa, also known as marijuana. Having now experienced my first inhalation of marijuana, I think it reasonable to state that my consciousness has been perceptibly elevated. Many thanks. Thank you, William. I'll talk to that. William F. Buckley Jr. as the rookie in Beverly Hills Crop. See you soon at a theater near you. The reason we can grow such high quality herb in California is that we have great weather. Sometimes it does get a little bit hot in Southern California. In fact, this time of year, you can even say that it was hot in Southern California today. How hot was it? It was so hot in Southern California today. It was so hot in Southern California today that Madonna was dirty dancing with a popsicle. And now, ladies and gentlemen, you've all seen the Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson. It is time to introduce a visitor from the East. He is the all-knowing, the all-seeing, the all-omniscient, seer, sage, and soothsayer, and former diplomacy advisor to Hulk Hogan, Harnack the Magnificent. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am Karnak the Magnificent. I hold in my hand the envelopes. But the child who can plainly see these envelopes are hermetically sealed. They've been kept in a mayonnaise jar in the Funkin' Wagner Sports Room today. No one but I, in my mystical, moral, and telepathic way, can reveal the answers that never before seen these questions. The first envelope. Terms of endearment. What terms are in Dandy's contract? Terms of endearment. Dandy was a deer. Karnak is between Disneyland humor with an R-rated crowd. Give my regards to Broad Street. Give my regards to Broad Street. What did Archie Bunker say to Edith Bunker as Edith left for the ERA rally? Give my regards to Broad Street. And I'll show that pig fry your sister's bacon. Thank you. The Queen Mary and the Spruce... Sorry. My stepmother is an alien. My stepmother is an alien. My stepmother is an alien. As Dan Quayle's excuse, what's drugs or browns? And it's slipping into Hollywood hot tub. The Queen Mary and the Spruce Goose. The Queen Mary and the Spruce Goose. I just said that. The Queen Mary... The Queen Mary and the Spruce Goose. What did Rosie and Arnold eat for lunch today? Can we laugh? Rosie and Beard didn't us for a week. 2 weeks. Head Start. What do you call the first toke of the day? It's breakfast for your head. What is a marijuana omelet? Food for thought. What are hash brownies? Parsley, sage, rosemary, and marijuana. Name 4 salad herbs. Mangoes are good for the brown pork, paraput, and the petunias. Grass court. Where would Steffi Graf go? She got busted for grass. Joint appearance. What do you see at a pop party? The Wrong Show. How do you describe the entertainment at a really good party? May your girlfriend just say no to your pants. Hot luck. What is the opposite of marijuana-lessness? Hot pot pie. Give a hot marijuana entree. Hot belly. What do you get if you eat too much pot? Abbey Road Studios, 1967. Where did the Rock Age meet the Stone Age? Off the ground. How do you say, let's get high, mate, when you're again on the run in a police state? The higher good. The higher good. The higher good. What is Sensomia? Tokyo. What is the marijuana capital of Japan? Chiquita McIntosh and Drugzar Brown. Name a banana, an apple, and an impeach. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously by popular demand, I hold in my hand the proverbial final envelope. And the next on-site inspection. On-site inspection. What should you make sure you get when you make a treaty with Boderic's bikini? On-site inspection. Thank you, Karnak the Magnificent. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That is the way it almost is. This is Robert William Abrevaya, the Robert William Abrevaya Show. Thank you, and please stay tuned for the rest of the program. The United States of America should relegalize hemp. It is in the best interests of the United States of America and the world to relegalize hemp. George Washington grew marijuana, then referred to as hemp, on his farm. So did Thomas Jefferson. Benjamin Franklin used hemp paper in his newspaper business. The first draft of the Declaration of Independence was written on hemp paper. The first draft of the Constitution was written on hemp paper. Indeed, the historically legal marijuana hemp plant is inextricably intertwined with the birth of our nation. Please consider 34 of the most important reasons why today's American citizens should have the same legal right profitably enjoyed by America's founding fathers, namely to legally use the beneficial, versatile, historically legal marijuana hemp plant. Freedom of thought, First Amendment, consciousness, self-determination, and individual autonomy, the pursuit of happiness, inconsistent with America's economic system and America's political and social ethic, privacy, justice, Eighth Amendment, Ninth Amendment, equal protection, medicine, food, fuel, fiber, environment, family, farms, employment, tax revenues, budget deficit, trade deficit, prosperity, crime, courts, prison, respect for law, wider allocation of governmental resources, drug dealing gangs, organized crime, international terrorism, national security, unconstitutional governmental conduct, preventing a totalitarian police state, choosing a freer future, and peace. Freedom of thought. The laws which criminalize marijuana use abridge freedom of thought, make such use a thought crime, a quote, thought crime, unquote, and therefore should be declared unconstitutional. Freedom of thought is at least one of the most fundamental freedoms protected by the Constitution of the United States of America. All of our explicitly stated fundamental First Amendment freedoms presuppose freedom of thought. Consider freedom of speech. Quote, Congress shall make the law abridging the freedom of speech. In the words of the United States Supreme Court Justice Louis D. Brandeis, quote, those who won our independence believe that freedom to think as you will and to speak as you think are means indispensable to the discovery and spread of political truth. Because your thoughts determine the words you speak. Being able, Mr. Justice Brandeis' words, quote, to speak as you think, is of limited value if your thought processes are being controlled. If your thought processes are being controlled, you are not able to freely choose the words you utter. Free speech cannot result from controlled thought. You can speak freely only if you can think freely. Self-evidently, freedom of speech cannot exist without freedom of thought. Similarly, freedom of the press is actually manipulation of the press if the minds choosing the words to be published are being controlled. Freedom of thought is indispensable to freedom of religion as well. Religions address themselves to the mind as well as to the body and soul. Marijuana is a sacrament in at least one religion. Individuals with other formal religious affiliations have discovered that the sacramental use of marijuana can provide comparable religious benefits. Finally, peaceably assembling and petitioning the government for a redress of grievances are empty exercises if not animated by freely derived thoughts. None of these explicit First Amendment freedoms could exist without freedom of thought. In the words of United States Supreme Court Justice Benjamin N. Cardozo, quote, "Freedom of thought and speech is the matrix, the indispensable condition of nearly every other form of freedom. As the sine qua non of freedom of speech and, quote, nearly every other form of freedom, freedom of thought is more fundamental than any of them and is, therefore, at least one of the most fundamental freedoms protected by the Constitution of the United States of America. A thought crime, a, quote, thought crime, unquote, is any act with a significant cerebrational component that contravenes a criminal statute. Marijuana is a psychoactive substance. A psychoactive substance, by definition, has a significant effect on cerebrational processes. It affects how we think and what we think. Thus, marijuana use has a significant cerebrational component, and such use is, at the present time, a thought crime, a, quote, thought crime, unquote, a, quote, crime, unquote. Marijuana is a teacher. Marijuana is a consciousness creation tool. Marijuana is, at least potentially, a vehicle for consciousness improvement. New and different inputs, whether these inputs are from a book, a television program, or a psychoactive substance such as marijuana, new and different inputs help to create new and different thoughts. Relatively, potential inputs that an authoritarian government censors before they can reach us have no opportunity to, and therefore cannot teach us. Inputs censored before they can reach us cannot teach us. First Amendment. Participation in a debate is an activity protected by the First Amendment. Unfortunately, at the present time, it is a thought crime to use marijuana while participating in a debate. I have found that marijuana improves mental functioning. I would be pleased to debate drugs on ground, or anyone he designates, or drugs on ground and anyone he designates, or any other two opponents of relegalization at the same time, provided that I am allowed an amount of time to speak that is comparable to their combined amount of time. During that debate, presuming sufficient prior arrangements, I would be pleased to use marijuana within full view of all those choosing to proceed the debate. Unfortunately, under the current unconstitutional marijuana laws, drugs on ground can conveniently hide behind the fact that using marijuana while participating in a debate is a thought crime. Consciousness, self-determination, and individual autonomy. Thomas Jefferson wrote that he opposed, quote, every form of tyranny over the mind of man. Every American is endowed with a fundamental, natural, unalienable, universal human right to choose, control, and determine his own consciousness, his own spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical condition. As John Stuart Mill wrote, quote, this, then, is the appropriate region of human liberty. It comprises, first, the inward domain of consciousness, demanding liberty of conscience in the most comprehensive sense, liberty of thought and feeling, absolute freedom of opinion on all subjects. Over himself, over his own body and mind, the individual is sovereign. The pursuit of happiness. According to the Declaration of Independence, quote, pursuit of happiness is one of our, quote, unalienable rights. Millions of Americans regularly use marijuana to pursue happiness. Marijuana is a happiness drug as well as a thought drug. If happiness cannot be pursued in one's own consciousness and one's own being, where can happiness be pursued? Inconsistent with America's economic system and America's political and social ethic. The neo-totalitarian police state propagandists, the would-be thought controllers and mind manipulators, the Partnership for a Drug-Free America might be more accurately described as the Partnership for Tobacco, Alcohol, and Pharmaceutical Drug Monopoly. The neo-totalitarian police state propagandists have been attempting to brainwash you into believing that you are somehow not smart enough to think for yourself, that you are not wise enough to make your own consciousness decisions. By contrast, the relegalization of marijuana argument presumes the validity of the basic tenet of America's economic system and of America's whole political and social ethic, namely that reasonable, responsible, prudent, adult American citizens will use freedom wisely to improve the quality of their lives. Privacy. Every American possesses what has been described as a right, quote, to be let alone. However, under the current unconstitutional marijuana laws, I would be, quote, guilty of a, quote, crime if I chose to use marijuana while praying or writing a speech in the ostensible privacy of my own home. Justice. It is unjust to punish an individual who is acting in a constitutional manner. Eighth Amendment. Any criminal punishment is, quote, cruel and unusual if the act being punished is constitutionally protected and should not be classified as a crime. Ninth Amendment, quote, the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. It appears reasonable to infer that it was not the, quote, original intent of George Washington to criminalize a plant that he himself cultivated. Equal protection. Former Beatle Paul McCartney explained the song Band on the Run this way, quote, we didn't see why we should be treated like criminals when all we wanted to do was smoke pot instead of hitting the booth, unquote. Individuals who prefer and or could benefit from marijuana and choose to use it rather than, for example, alcohol or tobacco are being targeted by an invidiously discriminatory policy when they have to risk unconstitutional abuses of power by the thought police and parapet contamination or worse. The schizophrenic federal government subsidizes tobacco farmers at the same time that it requires health warning labels to be placed on cigarette packs. There are more than 300,000 tobacco-related and more than 100,000 alcohol-related deaths in America each year. By contrast, in the words of the Drug Enforcement Administration's own 1988 Chief Administrative Law Judge Francis, unquote, there is no record in the extensive medical literature describing a proven documented cannabis-induced fatality. Medicine. The United States government and 35 of the state governments have officially determined that marijuana is and or could potentially be a good drug, at least for a limited number of approved individuals with certain recognized medical problems such as glaucoma and nausea associated with cancer chemotherapy treatment. Thus, since marijuana was re-legalized for glaucoma patient Robert Randall in 1976, more than 24 Americans have received official legal marijuana to treat their medical conditions. A 1991 Harvard University study of oncologists found that 54% favored reclassifying marijuana so that it would again be routinely available by prescription as it was until 1937. A 1992 medical marijuana resolution in San Francisco received the support of 79.6% of the voters. In the words of the DEA's all-men Chief Administrative Law Judge Francis L. Young, marijuana is, quote, one of the safest therapeutically active substances known to man, unquote. Food. Hemp is a moraceous herb in the same plant family as the fig. Hemp seed is one of nature's richest sources of plant protein. The relegalization of hemp could end world hunger. Fuel. Hemp can produce approximately 10 times more methanol per acre than corn. Marijuana methanol could eliminate our dependence on finite foreign fossil fuels. Fiber. According to a 1938 article in Popular Mechanics magazine, hemp was, quote, the standard fiber of the world, unquote. Much of the clothing worn by George Washington soldiers at Valley Forge was made of hemp. England's 1993 decision to partially legalize hemp permits the legal production of hemp fiber. Family environment. According to the United States government's own official figures, hemp can produce 4.1 times more paper per acre than trees. According to the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, NORML, relegalization would reduce deforestation by 50% or more worldwide. Family farms. Hemp was, in the words of ABC News' Hugh Downs, quote, once the mainstay of American agriculture. Because of the thousands of products that could be produced from this versatile plant, including food, medicine, fuel, textiles, and paper, a massive new legal above-ground economy market would result from relegalization. According to one estimate, a $550 billion a year legal market. Employment. Relegalization will mean at least hundreds of thousands of new jobs. Tax revenues. Tax the thousands of hemp products at a reasonable rate and should easily result in $100 billion a year. Budget deficit. As tax revenues increase, there will be at least potentially a relative decrease in the budget deficit. Trade deficit. After the appropriate treaty modifications, relegalized hemp could help to eliminate the trade deficit. Prosperity. According to Jack Herer, author of The Emperor Wears No Clothes, hemp is, quote, the world's premier renewable natural resource, unquote. Popular Mechanics indicated that hemp could be used to produce more than 30,000 products in 1938. According to The Emperor Wears No Clothes, the number of products is now approximately 50,000. A $550 billion a year legal industry would have a large positive ripple effect on the rest of the economy. Crime. Relegalization will reduce crime. The whole category of so-called crimes will have been eliminated. In 1991, there were approximately 285,000 marijuana arrests. Courts will be at least potentially relatively less clogged. Prisons will be at least potentially relatively less crowded. Respect for law. According to the DEA's Judge Young, quote, estimates suggest that from 20 million to 50 million Americans routinely smoke marijuana. The marijuana prohibition results in peaceful civil disobedience by millions of Americans on a regular basis. When such otherwise unjust, unconstitutional laws are abolished, respect for the rule of law will increase. Currently, the cowardice of the hypocrisy is being highlighted by the actions of Ron Kaczynski. On April 19, 1993, Kaczynski sent President Clinton a quarter of a pound of marijuana along with a hemp commentary by Hugh Downs and other sources of hemp information. On September 1, he sent Clinton another half pound of the forbidden herb. Despite coverage by the Wall Street Journal, the feds refused to arrest Kaczynski, apparently because the resulting trial would expose the intellectual bankruptcy of the government's position and bring to light the truth about the beneficial hemp plant. Wider allocation of governmental resources. Instead of wasting billions of dollars a year violating the constitutional rights of American citizens, the drug czar, prohibition agents, greedy lawyers, marijuana-sniffing dogs, corrupt bureaucracy-bloating judges, urine testers, and others with a vested interest in perpetuating the unconstitutional prohibition would be encouraged to turn their attention to matters that are properly the government's business. We, the people of the United States of America, should end this unwise welfare program for police-state parasites. Drug dealing gangs. It is known that unlawful drugs, including marijuana, have been an important source of revenue for many gangs. Relegalizing marijuana will therefore subtract from their potential economic power. Organized crime. The same basic economic reasoning that applies to drug dealing gangs also applies to organized crime generally. International terrorism. This same economic reasoning also applies to many international terrorist groups. National security. The current combination of treaties, laws, and judicial decisions is being perpetuated by an unholy alliance between and among the Clinton administration, the Republican dinosaurs in Congress, the courts, law enforcement entities, the alcohol, tobacco, and pharmaceutical drug lobbies, the petroleum lobby, international terrorists, lawyers, organized crime, and others with a vested interest in perpetuating the unconstitutional prohibition. Repealing the marijuana laws will eliminate the marijuana component of this unholy alliance. Ending the prohibition will subtract from the potential economic power of international terrorists and organized crime. Also, relegalization will mean increased total energy independence, a more robust economy, and a healthier environment and citizenry. Thus, abolishing the prohibition will strengthen America, while significant threats to America's security will have had their weapon power diminished. Unconstitutional governmental conduct. The marijuana prohibition encourages unconstitutional governmental conduct. See, for example, People v. Evans, a 1977 California case which held that the use by law enforcement personnel of marijuana-sniffing dogs, or referred to in the cases, quote, canine cannabis connoisseurs, unquote, violated the appellant's Fourth Amendment right, quote, to be secure against unreasonable searches and seizures. Preventing a totalitarian police state, relegalization should reduce the possibility of a totalitarian takeover of the United States of America. Continuation of the unconstitutional prohibition may be helping to pave the way for a totalitarian police state. The case of recently retired Los Angeles Police Chief Darrell Gates illustrates part of the danger. Gates is, in effect, according to his own sworn testimony, a would-be mass murderer. During his testimony before Congress, In 1990, the then chief of police of the country's second largest city opined that casual drug users should be, quote, taken out and shot, unquote. In 1991, on KCBS-TV's Newsmakers program, he estimated that there were 30 million Americans who he would describe as, quote, casual drug users, unquote. Thus, Gates has in effect advocated the mass murder of 30 million Americans. In 1992, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department did not find any marijuana on the person or property of Malibu homeowner Donald Scott, but they shot and killed him anyway. The potential for abuse of power that results from the negative synergy of a mass murderer consciousness, increasingly sophisticated high-tech weapons that can threaten to destroy or actually destroy much of the U.S. population in less than a day, the massive vested interest in the perpetuation of the unconstitutional prohibition that is shared by the hordes of police state parasites, mandatory drug testing, forfeiture laws, electronic surveillance, master control, and other means of modern repression that can be exploited by the forces of tyranny, means that we may already be seen laying the groundwork for a totalitarian police state that will make Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany look like Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. A late 20th century takeover of high-tech America could result in a totalitarian takeover of the world that would take place with preemptive swiftness and be not just total but also totally irreversible. Choosing a freer future. Thought control or freedom of thought, government control or individual responsibility, tyranny or freedom. The choice is still ours to make, but delay increases the risk. Peace. The increase in freedom of thought, the resulting improvement in individual and collective consciousnesses, and the synergistic effect of all 33 relegalization reasons already discussed should improve the prospects for the creation of a just, harmonious, and enduring world peace. A growing number of prominent Americans, including the 39th President of the United States of America, Jimmy Carter, former Secretary of State George Shultz, Wireline host William F. Buckley Jr., Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman, United States District Court Judge Robert Sweet, and Baltimore Mayor Kurt Schmoke, as well as ABC News' Hugh Downs, have indicated they favor a new approach to the marijuana issue. Please join us, ladies and gentlemen. Please support the 1994 California Hemp Initiative. It is in the best interest of the United States of America and the world to relegalize hemp, the beneficial, versatile, historically legal marijuana hemp plant. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Century Cable Public Access for helping make this program possible. I would also like to thank you for choosing to perceive the Robert William Abrevaya Show. This has been the Robert William Abrevaya Show. I am Robert William Abrevaya. Thank you and good day.